The Mack family's house glowed with a warm, festive light. Christmas lights twinkled like stars in the night sky, casting a magical glow over the entire neighborhood. It was Christmas Eve, and inside, everyone was buzzing with excitement. Dad wrestled with suitcases, trying to fit everything in. Mom checked her list 100 times, making sure nothing was forgotten. She was meticulous, as always. 10-year-old twins, Max and Mia, bounced off the walls with boundless energy. Their excitement was contagious. They were going on an adventure, a Christmas adventure that promised new experiences and memories. "Is everyone ready?" Dad asked, his voice booming through the house, filled with anticipation. "Almost!" Mom called back, shoving a stray scarf into a bag. She was always the last to finish packing. Max and Mia jumped up and down, chanting, "Farmhouse! Farmhouse! Farmhouse!" Their excitement was palpable. This wasn't just any farmhouse. This was Great Aunt Mildred's farmhouse, a place filled with history and mystery. She had lived there alone for years and years. Now, she was gone, leaving behind an air of mystery. Mia shivered, even though the house was warm. The thought of the old farmhouse gave her chills. Great Aunt Mildred had been different. Eccentric, some would say. Others whispered she was a bit of a witch. Max nudged her. "Don't worry," he whispered. "How scary can it be?" Mia wasn't so sure, her mind racing with possibilities. As their car pulled away from the curb, the streetlights seemed to dim, casting long shadows. The further they drove, the darker it got. The familiar city lights faded into the distance. Soon, there were only trees, tall, imposing trees that seemed to close in on them. Their branches were bare claws against the twilight sky, creating an eerie silhouette. The drive was long, the road was dark. Max and Mia dozed in the back seat. Every now and then, a pair of eyes would flash open. They'd see only trees, more trees, and darkness. "Are we lost?" Mia finally asked, her voice small. "Don't be silly," Dad said, but he sounded unsure. He kept glancing at the map. It was old and crumpled. It crackled every time he unfolded it. Hours passed. The car bumped along the narrow road. The headlights flickered. Shadows danced and twisted in the beams. They looked like creatures lurking at the edge of the light. Then through the darkness they saw it. A shape loomed in the distance. "There!" Dad exclaimed, his voice tight with relief. They all stared out the window. The farmhouse stood alone, dark, silent, waiting. The farmhouse was ancient. Its paint peeled like sunburned skin. The porch sagged. One of the rocking chairs creaked back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, even though there was no wind. "Wow," Max breathed. Mia just hugged her teddy bear closer. She didn't like this one bit. The front door groaned open. It was like the house was sighing. Inside it was dark and cold. Dust covered everything. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the smell, it was like old books and something else, something musty, something unpleasant. "Well, this is cozy," Mom said, trying to sound cheerful. But her voice echoed in the silence. It didn't sound cheerful at all. It sounded scared. They unpacked the car in record time. Everyone wanted to get inside, away from the dark woods and the watching windows of the farmhouse. Inside, they explored. The farmhouse was full of shadows and strange noises. Floorboards creaked underfoot. The wind howled down the chimney. A loose shutter banged against the side of the house. "Let's decorate," Mom said, her voice a little too loud. She was trying to break the tension. It wasn't working. They found a dusty box of Christmas decorations in the attic. Tinsel, faded and tangled. A string of lights with half the bulbs missing. A one-eyed Santa Claus doll. As they decorated, they told each other it wasn't so bad. It was just an old house. A creepy old house. But not haunted, right? Night came. Shadows grew longer. The wind howled outside. Inside, the fire crackled in the hearth. But it couldn't chase away the chill in the air, or the feeling that someone, or something, was watching them. Dinner was a quiet affair. They all jumped at every creak and groan of the old house. Finally, it was time for bed. Max and Mia shared a room. The wallpaper was peeling. There were shadows in the corners that looked like lurking figures. Mia kept hearing things. Footsteps in the hallway. Whispers just outside their door. A low guttural growl that seemed to come from right under her bed. "Max?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are you awake?" Max didn't answer. He was sound asleep. Or was he? Mia woke to a cold room and a terrifying silence. The house wasn't groaning anymore, the wind wasn't howling, and Max was gone. "Max!" Mia called out, her voice shaky. No answer. She scrambled out of bed and raced to her parents' room. They were gone too. Panic welled up inside her. Where could they be? She searched the house. Each room was empty, each one colder than the last. She even checked the creepy attic and the dusty basement. Nothing. Then she remembered the barn. It stood at the edge of the woods, dark and imposing. The barn door creaked open as if inviting her in. Mia stepped inside. The air was thick with the smell of hay and something else. Something rotten. She could hear a faint sound coming from the back of the barn, a soft humming, like a lullaby. The humming led Mia to a dusty old mirror. It was hidden behind a pile of rotting hay. As she peered into its cracked surface, the humming grew louder. The reflection in the mirror wasn't her own. It was a girl about her age with long black hair and piercing blue eyes. "Don't trust the shadows," the girl in the mirror whispered. "The Shadow King is near." Before Mia could answer, the mirror went dark. The humming stopped. Mia was alone. Or was she? She noticed a faint scratching sound coming from behind the mirror. Heart pounding, she pushed against the cold glass. It swung open, revealing a hidden passageway. At the end of the passageway, she could hear her brother's voice. "Help me!" Max cried out. Mia raced down the passageway, her heart pounding in her chest. The darkness seemed to close in around her, but she pushed forward, driven by a desperate need to save her brother. The narrow passage suddenly opened up into a large underground chamber. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant drip of water. In the center of the chamber, she saw Max standing alone and looking terrified. He was trapped inside a cage made of twisted branches, the wood creaking ominously as he moved. Standing over him was a grotesque creature, its form barely visible in the dim light. It was tall and skeletal, with glowing red eyes and long, sharp claws that seemed to glint menacingly. Its skin seemed to be made of shadows, shifting and swirling as if alive. It turned towards Mia, its eyes burning with a malevolent light that sent chills down her spine. "You should not have come here, child!" the creature hissed, its voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind, echoing through the cavern. "This is the domain of the Shadow King," it declared, its voice filled with dark authority. From the shadows, a figure emerged, its presence commanding and terrifying. Tall and imposing, it was cloaked in darkness, its form almost blending with the shadows around it. Its eyes, 2 points of crimson fire, fixed on Mia, filled with an ancient and malevolent intelligence. "The ritual is almost complete," the Shadow King boomed, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Soon, I shall have the power to escape this prison and plunge the world into eternal darkness." His proclamation hung in the air, a promise of doom that made Mia's blood run cold. Thinking fast, Mia grabbed a lantern from the dusty shelf, her hands trembling with fear and determination. With all her might, she hurled it at the creature holding Max captive, hoping to create a distraction. The lantern shattered upon impact, flames quickly igniting the dry wood of the cage, spreading rapidly. The creature shrieked in agony, its shadowy form flickering wildly in the firelight, creating an eerie spectacle. Seizing the moment, Max used the distraction to kick at the weakened bars of the cage with all his strength. With a loud groan of metal, the cage finally burst open, allowing Max to escape. Max and Mia didn't waste a second. They raced back through the dark passageway, hearts pounding. The Shadow King's roar echoed menacingly behind them, growing louder with each step they took. They emerged from behind the mirror back into the barn, gasping for breath but not daring to stop. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of the farmhouse, their sanctuary. Their parents were there, frantic with worry, embracing them tightly as if to never let go. They had escaped the barn too, chased by the relentless shadows and the terrifying growls. Without a moment's hesitation, they piled into the car, not even stopping to pack their belongings. As they drove away, the farmhouse disappeared behind them, swallowed by the darkness. The Christmas lights on the distant houses seemed to shine brighter now, pushing back the encroaching darkness. They sat in silence, the weight of the night's events pressing heavily on their minds. But sometimes, in the dead of night, Mia would wake from a nightmare, drenched in sweat. She could still hear the Shadow King's sinister laughter, echoing hauntingly in her dreams. And she knew, deep down, that some shadows never truly disappear, lingering just out of sight. They just wait for the right moment to resurface, ready to haunt once more.